Good morning. It's beautiful spring morning here in Phoenix, Arizona. It's Friday, I guess Good Friday for some. Easter Sunday is coming up. And I wanted to discuss a little bit more about spring and rebirth and this time of year because I had the opportunity recently to revisit uh, something from my past, how I was raised. And I want to invite you, if you're in a space where you feel like you could do this as an observer and be objective about it. A lot of people are going to have the opportunity to spend time with family or friends from their past. And when you go through difficult life experiences and you're doing a lot of healing, it can really be almost more traumatic to go back into the space where people are going to stir things up. And they don't mean to. Usually people do it because they love you, right? They're wanting to make sure you're okay and check in on you. But really it just stirs up a bunch of stuff, and because you're still in it, and you can't really be step back and be objective about it yet. And that's okay. So honor that. But for those of you who feel like you've moved forward a little bit and you can be objective about your own story, some of the stuff you've been through, I'll share briefly what I experienced, because in my family of origin, we celebrated every year on Nice and 14 the death of, well, I should say the Passover. And I was invited by someone from my past. She and I grew up together. We were like inseparable in high school, and I still have a deep love for her. But since I separated from that religious organization because of the lifestyle I was living, I felt it was disrespectful to even pretend to be something I wasn't in their space for people who are really working hard on keeping their moral fiber up and to live a certain way. I wanted to honor that and also honor my process as well. And it's best for everyone when you kind of separate when people are going through something like that, uh, because you don't want to offend anyone, and you also don't want to bring them down if you're kind of in the muck, which I was. But I feel really good about where I'm at. And then she happened to get back in touch with me after I don't know how many years. It's got to be close to 10 when we last talked. And she just happened to say, well, we're we're celebrating this on this night. Would you like to come? And I didn't feel any resistance. I mean, after I said yes, I was like, oh, anxiety kicked in. Like, oh my goodness. Stepping back into, like, it's almost like a time capsule when you have separated yourself from something from your past, and you realize you're about to step back into it. You get like, oh, because you don't know what to expect, and you kind of know what to expect, but you feel like you're a different person. But like I remember telling her, when you go through stuff like this, I don't know if I'm getting to know myself on a deeper level this entire process, or if I'm just coming full circle back to myself, or am I growing and evolving? I mean, we tell ourselves I'm growing and I'm evolving. And yeah, you get wisdom and you gain a lot in life when you go through experiences and you're really dedicated to changing unhealthy patterns and habits. So that's an aspect of growth. But on a simpler level, maybe you're just coming full circle back into who you are, just with a little added wisdom, experience, and translating it in a way in your everyday life to where you can help other people do the same, and without maybe going through the intense trauma that you put yourself through. But people are going to do what they're going to do anyway, which you got to always remember, it's not about you or the healer or the facilitator. I consider myself more of a facilitator. You do the healing. I just give you a nudge. Anyway, I digress. The point is, I stepped back into the space. So I was able to look at it and sit with all these people that the whole vision of it, with people seated in their seats with their families and their children, their loved ones, these deep friendships and this bursting, bubbling love and joy. And then, of course, the sacredness of the actual, ritual, and then the love that was shared afterwards. And I was sitting there thinking about little Micah, and I was looking at all of this as little Micah, the one that started forming the love addict patterns without realizing it, the fantasy. And I remember I was thinking about, because her and I, my old friend and I, we had had lunch before this event so we could catch up, and we had an interesting discussion about the bubble that we grow up in. And sometimes when you grow up in this little bubble, you have an expectation that things are always going to work out a certain way, especially when you're little, because adults think it's necessary to shield you from things that are scary or dangerous. But the problem is, on some level, they have to experience something that is part of reality, the light and the shadow. Obviously, you don't expose them, you protect them, and you don't expose them to something that they can't handle. But they should know that disagreements in relationships happen, so that they can also observe the resolution of it. Now, deep, intense fights and things that are abusive, manipulative, traumatic, obviously we want to protect our children from that. But I'm talking about the everyday, not everybody gets along, everything isn't all rainbows, and sometimes life is hard. And how do we come together as a family unit, as a partnership, and figure this out together instead of attacking and blaming? And if we allowed our kids to understand that that happens and how it gets resolved without violence or aggressiveness or abuse of some kind, whether it's emotional or mental or manipulation, then how much easier would it be for them to step into the world and know that they have the bubble to step into when they need it, and they can even carry it around with them. But instead, my bubble that I carried around with me was fantasy. And I imagined that this is how everything is supposed to be. So when it didn't, I would shut down, and I just was like, I don't know what to do. Because all I see in my mind is everybody being in love and happy and doing everything as a family, and nobody is ever separate, and nobody is autonomous. And now I'm not saying that was a fact. I'm saying that is how little Micah's brain was perceiving the world around her, because children don't always perceive things in the most accurate ways because their brains aren't developed, right? It's not like they can help it. So I'm seeing how little Micah started forming these patterns and these ways of thinking, and this way of the escape mechanism when things were uncomfortable. And it actually felt really good to sit there and say and see that and just be like, oh, I get it. I'm starting to feel a little bit more like, now I understand. And then the grown-up Micah is working on resolution with that, knowing that those patterns are still ingrained in who I am and they're always going to be there. So what does grown-up Micah do about it, other than console little Micah and say, it's okay. It doesn't all look like this all the time for everybody, but you can help people feel and get to know their bubble and recognize what their fear is, what their unmet need is that drives them to the unhealthy patterns that they get stuck in. So anyway, if you have the opportunity to spend time with family and friends in the near future or this weekend, and you feel like you're up for it, like it's not going to stir up more traumatic things, but you feel secure in yourself, you're not in a victim sense, not victimized, no victim mentality, but you can remain an observer and not take anything people say to heart too much, but know that it might be because they care about you, and it just might not come across right, which is common in families. Then I invite you to do so and see how little you perceive the world around them, because it's really insightful. So if you do have an experience like that, whether recently in the past or over the weekend, just let me know and put it in a comment below. I will be posting the vulnerable video early next week. I just don't want to post it today. I thought this was more timely. So stay tuned for that. And I look forward to your comments or messages.